Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica, Imperialis and to today's video. Today is going to be another my thoughts on, I'm late as always, and this is going to be my thoughts on the big Warhammer 40,000 online preview, as well as, because I get to do this a bit later, a chance to look at some of the other things that have been revealed after the fact. So we get to see a bit more stuff. So this video is going to be long. It's going to be quite long because this is also going to include all of my thoughts on 40k 9th edition, at least for now, and then I might make a separate video once we've had all the details, but I'll get into that later. Right, so I've already spoiled what we're going to talk about today, and luckily the show started with it, with this trailer. This trailer was nuts. Like, actually genuinely nuts. I was watching this in a Snarkathon with a few of my Discord server, and we were just like, what is this? Is this a new game? Is this like a short film? What are they showing us here? It had that Sister of Battle animation that was shown at Preview 1, I think it was. Maybe Preview 2, I forget. And we all thought, like, what is this? Because they were fighting these Necrons, and then there were new Necrons, and then there were super new Necrons, and Primaris doing new stuff, and it was nuts. And then we realised what it was. This trailer was the new edition's intro cinematic, if you will. So there's a few screenshots here that we'll cycle through. So the first one is this one with the Sister of Battle healing herself. After being hit by, I think it was one of the melee weapons of the Necrons, which was really cool to see. Basically passing a 4+ roll for an act of faith to heal. It was really cool to see. It wasn't quite a shield of faith, but it was really cool nonetheless. We got, some people said this is one of the best shots because of the sound of the bolter. I'd have to watch it back to see if I agree with that. But this shot with the Primaris Space Marine, battered, bruised, worn down, scarred, armour in not quite ruins, but certainly seen much better days, standing in an Imperial Cathedral with the Aquila at his back and light streaming through behind him. That's cover art. Right there, that is rulebook cover art quality. It's that good of a shot. I would not be mad if that was on the front of the rulebook, or maybe on one of the special editions. I really wouldn't be mad. It's that good. I love this shot. Then we got to see this. I'll talk about these guys a bit more later. These are some of the new Primaris units, actually, that we got to see. As well as this, which we also get to see later. This is one of the new Necron units, which is absolutely terrifying in the shot. I think we all collectively just went, what the things I can't repeat. It was so impressive to see up close and live, and this is a really cool shot as well. Simple, effective, sums the Imperium up, everything's on fire, but we stand, we fight, it all works out, or it doesn't, as the case may be. So, some really cool stuff in that trailer, and all of this was, as I say, the herald to 9th edition. They don't reveal much at this show in terms of the full in-depth stuff, but we'll talk about that later. The big thing to stress right now, which I'm sure you're all aware because I'm doing this late, is that all the codices and all the Psychic Awakening books are valid. Essentially what they've done with Psychic Awakening is done what they did with Malign Portents for Age of Sigmar, where they've had a series of stories, a series of, well, in Malign Portent's case, it was one book, supplemented by battle tomes being released for a while in the new sort of Malign Portents era. And then at the end, everything in that period was fully optimized and designed with the new edition in mind, so that when AOS 2 dropped, everything was lovely jubbly, off we go. It seems like they pulled the same trick here with Psychic Awakening, so everything from Psychic Awakening 1 forwards has probably been built with 9th edition in mind. As for codices, I wouldn't want to comment when they sort of changed them to be 9th ed codices, or tinkered toward being 9th ed codices. But it's good to see they've got that forward compatibility, though it does therefore indicate that 9th edition is more of a tune-up than it is a full reboot like, say, 8th edition was. But I'll talk about my thoughts on the edition toward the end of the video. Oh, come on. Really? Right, so the videos aren't going to play ball with me, but that's fine. So, the first of the new units they showed off was for the Space Marines. And this is the Assault Intercessor. So, Primaris have got a melee unit for, I think, the first time ever. I remember when Primaris came out, this was pre-Vanguard as well, like back in the initial run of Primaris. I remember saying a lot that they just need a decent melee unit. They haven't got a melee unit. They were missing other things as well, some of which we do see a bit later, but they were really lacking just a solid, basic, and an elite melee unit, and the Assault Intercessor is that. So they've got the chainswords, they've got heavy bolt pistols, I think they talked about, and they look good. They look like intercessors, but more actiony, and I can see a lot of Blood Angels players, or successors of Blood Angels as well, Space Wolves players, and Black Templars players getting a lot of use out of this, as well as any Space Marine chapter who sort of fights on the front foot, and doesn't like just having endless rows of bolters, which should be all of you because chainswords are awesome. They then actually did something even more interesting and redesigned and rebooted the Necron Warrior Kit. So, let's take a look at these, shall we? So, these are the new Necron Warriors, and they're really good. I was actually remarking when the price change happened, the sort of change in GW pricing, which I talked about in Adeptus Podcastus. I was actually thinking about how old the Necron Warrior range is. Like, a lot of the Necrons have been redone, like Immortals, Wraiths, Spiders, Lords. All of that has been redone, and yet we still have the basic warriors. And now we don't. And I think the big motivator, as well as updating the models, of course, was to get rid of those little green plastic rods that were great at the time, but really didn't age well. So they've been replaced with what look like the barrels from the Immortal guns, which makes total sense since they are Gauss weapons. So these are the new Gauss Flayers. And they also introduced a new weapon called the Gauss Reaper, which is a short-ranged assault weapon, which is going to give Necron Warriors a bit of a chance at dealing with hordes of infantry, and maybe just being able to get more wounds onto elite units before they get charged, which is never a bad thing. So yeah, can't complain. As for the kit itself, I think that the simplistic robot designs, like look at the feet in particular on this model, they've actually sort of dumbed down and straightened out the edges and made them almost less tactile in terms of having good limbs and whatnot. But they look like very basic combat androids now, compared to particularly even just the Immortals. They actually look really basic. And all the battle damage, which they've explained as being due to malfunctioning repair systems and having worse systems the lower down the Necron hierarchy you are, basically that's why even after 60 million years they can fight, but they're not looking too hot. So some good justification there that this one's been shot in the head clearly, it's got some damage on their leg. And this one, with another Gauss Reaper, has also got the adorable little Canoptech in the bottom corner. And you'll also notice they've been repainted to the Illuminor Caesaras colours, which I'm going to assume are also the Silent King's colours, though I think we'll have a better look at that. We might be able to work that one out later. But for now, we're going to call them Illuminor Caesaras colours. Then we got to know where the lore was going, with something called Dawn of Fire. So Dawn of Fire is going to be essentially the new overarching plot line for Black Library and the modern era. It's going to be the Horus Heresy for the era Indomitus. In essence, is sort of how they describe it, is it's going to work in a similar way to the Horus Heresy and the War of the Beast, where they have big writing teams, all with writers' rooms working together and collaborating. But the big difference they talk about, I think Guy Haley in particular and Nick Kime talked about it on the reveal stream, is that there is now going to be editorial oversight. So Guy Haley is chief writer and Nick Kime is some role very similar to chief editor, though I don't know if that's the exact title he used. So there's now going to be sort of an oversight to make sure that everything clicks together quite nicely, because that was one problem the Heresy did have. Sometimes in the Horus Heresy, things would jar with other Heresy books and not make sense compared to other established ideas. And so having this oversight will help to mitigate that issue. The first book is going to be called Avenging Sun. It is obviously a Gilliman novel, and it's being written by Guy Haley, who of course wrote Dark Imperium and Plague War, which are also Gilliman novels. And they talk about that you're going to see a real diversity of characters. So they talked about, you're going to have your Gillimans, you're going to have your Space Marines. Well, you've also got, for example, here you've got this naval officer, and you'll see even bits with ordinary citizens. And so it won't just be a Space Marine smash fest, which is good. It's really good. And seeing how the new Imperium looks to its people is obviously very, very useful. Now, I've been racking my brains about this symbol on the Space Marine shoulders. And I'm led to believe, / I think, it belongs to the Unnumbered Suns. That's the Grey Shields denotion that they are like Grey Shields or Unnumbered Suns yet to be assigned, making me think that this book in particular takes place before the Triumph at Rorkos. And we've actually never had a book set between the start of the Crusade and the Triumph at Rorkos, because Dark Imperium is Rorkos, isn't it? Oh, I've forgotten where Dark Imperium takes place. Go me. But yes, this should be an interesting read. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, with Siege of Terror winding down, Black Library is going to have a lot of writers now not involved in Mega Project, and I look forward to seeing what they can produce. So yeah, looking forward to this. I don't want to comment on it too much yet because I haven't read any of it. So I think reserve judgment, but definitely going to be picking up when it comes out just to see what the new plot is all about. So yeah, great stuff. And yeah, brilliant. Right, on we go. Then we had a little talk. This was about 10 minutes talking about playtesting with this individual here, Mike Brandt, the organizer of Nova, who is now working with the Warhammer community team. So congratulations to him. Now, in terms of actual information about 9th edition, it was 10 minutes of hot air. In all truth, the only thing they really talk about is missions and sort of getting the idea that TOs may not need to create their own mission pack so much because the missions that GW provides will be better. Okay, we'll see. Like I say, it was mostly 10 minutes of hot air. But congratulations to this gentleman on joining the Warhammer community team. I'm sure you'll do a great job, and hopefully Warhammer events will continue to prosper and be successful. Then James Workshop came to grace us with his presence and gave us 9 great things about the new edition. Now, I'm not going to rattle them all off here, and I'm not going to replay the video because my computer does not like that. But these are some of the biggest rules changes that are going to be coming soon. And to give you the highlights, or certainly I think the ones GW want you to take as the highlights, you have a new gaming system called Crusade, where you build your army along the way. In fact, there's a talk about it here. An ongoing narrative to your games, where your army grows from game to game in terms of size and the story, your battle honors, skills, relics, and scars. In essence, this sounds like a fancy, upgraded version of Age of Sigmar's Path to Glory system, which is not a bad thing by any means. I've not played Path to Glory, but as a quick way to build an army and do a narrative campaign, it works lovely. It works just fine as a starting point for gamers who are new to narrative, or maybe people who are looking to try something like a Tale of Four Gamers, or a Tale of Four Warlords as they call it nowadays. I think it would be a good system to introduce games masters and gamers to that idea so that they can blend the narrative and their collection quite simply. So I think this is the big highlight that they want to take away. The other ones they talked about, command points are getting a overhaul. They were a little bit sparse on details as to how this works, but the general idea, especially that I got from James Workshop, was they want soup out. They make references in the stream to the Loyal 32, which is, of course, a pseudo-infamous detachment of Astra Militarum taken by every Imperial army ever as a command point farm. And so I think that they are trying to get rid of soup and encourage more specialized build. And I think the mission designs that Mr. Brandt was talking about sort of hint at that as well, that they want armies to feel specialised in what they do. Now, command points are still potentially not going to be fixed, and stratagems are still going to be bonkers powerful because all the books are carried forward, but it is good to know that they're aware of the problems with command points at particularly, I think, higher levels of play. And so I think it's a good change that they're making. I just will reserve judgment until I've seen it because it's difficult. One of the other major tune-ups was to tanks. 2 major changes to big guns, actually. So tanks can now shoot in combat and keep blasting away, which means that tar-pitting a tank is now much harder, if not impossible, for armies to do, which is one of the biggest gripes that a lot of people had about 8th edition, is my tank got charged by some grots, I can't run them over, I can't even shoot, what on earth is happening? So that's a welcome change, I suspect, for mechanised armies, though whether they'll be able to shoot at full distance or maybe they'll be penalised, we'll see. And they also hinted at the idea that vehicles are going to be better suited to dealing with hordes of infantry in melee in the near future. So that we'll see on. The other big change came to actual big guns themselves, where essentially blast weapons are back, but pie plates are still in the bin. I'll leave that artwork up because that's cooler. So basically what they wanted to say was that weapons that should be very good at killing hordes of infantry with explosions, not flamers, like weapons like battle cannons, frag missiles, and things like that, that basically had lost their teeth against light infantry, are getting a boost against dealing with hordes of infantry. What shape this will take, we don't know. My guess is that they will get maybe more hits or more attacks against large units, sort of like how Age of Sigmar has, where when you're fighting units with 10 or more models, you do this instead. So there might be a new weapon type called Blast or Ordnance or Explosive that says against infantry units of 10 plus models, each hit with this weapon is counted as 2 hits, or you automatically roll 6 when determining the number of hit rolls you make. We don't know. But they've got options for that, and I think it's going to be an interesting system. It's good to see that because it might not affect unit positioning, but at the very least, it's a good compromise between the kind of toothless pie plates that we have of 8th edition and the redonkulous pie plates, I think, that we may have had, and the more complicated scatter system that we definitely had in 7th. The other major tune-up that really stuck in my head, though, there's 2 more I'm going to discuss. The major tune-up to me was in the form of terrain. So Pete Foley openly said on the stream that they made terrain too simple. Terrain in 7th, I think if you used it correctly, was probably quite nuts. So in 8th, they really took all the flavour out of terrain and made it very, very simplistic. And Pete Foley kind of said, yeah, we oversimplified, so we're going to put some complexity back. Exactly what form that takes. Now, James Workshop talked about the idea of getting bonuses when shooting out of cover, being able to ambush, strike from above, and things like that. Now, what form this takes, we don't know. I would suspect that you'll get maybe the ability to infiltrate a bit better. Maybe like height bonuses for units fighting across different levels will matter now. We will see. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious about new terrain, and they say that this is designed to benefit particularly melee armies, to give a boost to armies that need to cross the board and use cover to stay alive, because at the moment they're getting obliterated quite a lot. On par with that sort of fixing melee system, they also talked about the idea of strategic reserves being able to come in different ways. So rather than just roll for it or at a certain point they arrive from your board edge and wander up the board, basically, it seems like they want to introduce things like outflank back to the game and allow reserves to play more of an active role in the game. Because particularly in late game, if you walked your reserves on turn 3, unless they had massive heavy weapons, they probably weren't going to do much for most of the game if they were infantry, or their transport got popped or whatever else. So I think that's a great change. What effect it will have on melee armies in particular, I think, is most interesting. And finally, they talked about flyers. Like I say, I've missed at least one thing on this list. I know I have. where flyers now are going to be more interactive with infantry, so that stupid base blocking isn't going to be a thing by the sounds of it. And they're also able to leave the board and come back on again, which is a rule that was in 7th edition that I completely forgot that they took out in 8th edition, the ability to leave and come back on again. I genuinely forgot that was a rule that they got rid of in 8th edition, that if you leave the board, you die. I forgot. So I looked a bit silly. But yeah, I think it's good stuff. Some nice ideas. And as I say, it feels like a really solid, quite hefty tune-up to 8th edition to sort of fix the remaining issues that are too fundamental to the mechanics for an FAQ, whilst also keeping the spirit of 8th edition, which is working quite well, alive. So good. Right, on we go. They did say also they're going to be doing a studio Q&A. I'm hoping to get this video out before that happens. So this will probably come out on Tuesday. So it's 7 o'clock UK time, which is 2 o'clock Eastern, I think. 2 o'clock Eastern, give or take, is when that's going to be happening. It's a live Q&A on Warhammer TV. And there's a tweet there that you can reply to ask questions for the studio team. So we'll get a better idea about the rules, and I might make some notes from that and talk about it in a separate video. They also are introducing Warhammer 40,000's app, which is great. At flipping last, Age of Sigmar's had one for ages, and then there's also the Azir paid version where you can do all your combat list building, and this seems to be more like Azir. Whether it's going to be free, I forget, but it's going to have list building, and when you get a lot going on, it seems like it's going to be very, very advanced. Maybe some in-game stuff as well, which is great. So hopefully it's a good app. I feel sorry for apps like Battlescribe, who have been more than adequately holding the fort for list building apps. We'll see how they get on up against this. And the last thing, which is probably the most important for many people, is this. Whenever you buy a 9th edition codex, you'll get the digital rules for that codex in the app for free. So that means that basically, instead of having to buy a codex for paper or buy a codex in ebook for one reason or another, you now get both. So if you get the paper copy, you get the, maybe not the e-copy of the lore, but certainly the e-copy of the rules will be available in the Warhammer 40,000 app for you for free, so that you can use them in your games, which is great, because do you know why that's great? It means that hobbyists like me, who love having a paper codex and love flicking through it and taking in all the cool artwork and studying it that way, I get to do that and I get to keep them on my bookshelf, but I don't miss out on having access to the rules being constantly updated with all the FAQs that they're going to do and all the other balance patches that the game will receive, like points changes and the like. I will be able to have my codex and the main rules always up to date in the app. Everything will be fine, which drastically reduces the amount of paper and notes and things you have to carry around in your codex, which also hopefully will reduce a little bit of the book bloat. But with Psychic Awakening not being rolled in yet, we'll see. Now, this does specify it's for 9th ed codices. So if you buy, say, the Tau Codex, which is an 8th edition book, you won't get the digital 8th ed Tau Codex in app. At least that's what I get from this. It'll only be the 9th ed redos that will get this option. But given that every codex needs to have Psychic Awakening and chapter approved points values rolled into it to make it up to date again, I don't think it will be long before most of them will be sorted out. Or certainly it won't take any longer than it has for 8th edition, which is not bad, I suppose. So it's a plus and it should stay. Yeah, happy with that. They also show off the new Warhammer 40,000 website. I'm not going to go there now. You can go there yourself, but there's some cool stuff on there. And then they had this to finish. The Breaker of Gods. This is the Silent King's teaser reveal trailer. Now, again, I'm not going to play it because we actually get to see the Silent King slightly in a minute. But in general, this model looks boss. That is a transcendent Catan, we think, that is ensnared around the Silent King's throne. He's got attendants. He looks huge. He looks great from little bits we were able to piece together. And And it really feels like they've catacrosed him, i.e. made it a central army-defining general diorama where the leader is at the heart of it and looks the most badass thing in the room, which the Triumph of St. Catherine, whilst being cool, wasn't. It really wasn't. Catacross is, and it feels like Cesarek the Silent King is also going to be like that. And I can back that up based on the second article that we got about 24 hours later. This may have been in response to leaks that went round, or just general good scouring of things on the tinterwebs, but they did decide to do a follow-up article revealing a bunch more, including Potato Cam Canoptech, which I have not had chance to translate to binary, but someone in my Discord server said it was like, hey kids, want to see some models in binary? I'd have to go and translate it myself, because unfortunately I know my binary numbers, but I don't know the binary alphabet as well. But if that's what it says, cool. If not, I'm sure someone at GW wrote a good meme. So, let's have a closer look at some of the new models that we're getting. First off is the Primaris Assault Intercessor. You've got the Necron Warriors, which we've already seen. And then this. So this is called a Skorpek Lord. And it is one of the... it's the big Necron seen in that trailer, the cinematic trailer right at the start, the Mega Necron. It's actually not as big here as it looked in that trailer. Most people seem to place it at around Dreadnought size, but it looks boss. It's got like a Flayed 1 Mega Claw, a Mega Hyperphase Sword, and a Mega Doom Gun that kind of looks Gaussy but isn't. Yeah, this model is great. I've had some people saying that, oh yeah, it's really unstable because it's on 3 points of contact. Why is it not on 4 legs? Rule of cool. I'm sorry. Rule of cool applies. It looks awesome. And they've actually dug the legs into the ground, air quote, to make it easier to stick to the base, which is actually a really good move. And also, tripedal things. I raised you the Triarch Stalker. This is a Necron motif already. So yeah, the Skorpek Lord looks great. Happy with that. But they are up against a new Primaris Lieutenant with Volkite. So Volkite is back. That's a weapon from the Horus Heresy, actually. It's a 30k weapon. And for the first time, we are seeing it in 40k. And we've also got Primaris with Storm Shields for the first time, which is awesome. So, yep, great, brilliant. Thank you for showing us that. Then came the things that were probably leaks to start with. And right, there's a lot to digest here. Like, this image alone has probably taken up entire videos by other YouTubers. So I will try and be brief as best I can. So, bottom left, we have a reboot of what I assume is the Heavier Destroyer. It looks amazing. Yes, give it to me now. Above that, we have some sort of massive spindle drone with a doom scythe cannon on top, and also like swirling. Oh no, it's quadrupedal. It's quadrupedal with 2 massive doom guns, and it's a new Canoptech construct, and it looks a bit ridiculous and like it would fall over in a stiff breeze, but it looks pretty damn awesome. We've got the new Warriors. We've got Triarch Praetorians. Got another one of those big spindly things, but a bit smaller. Looks like a slightly smaller melee variant. You've got Immortals. You've got, looks like a Cryptek. I don't know if that's I think that's a Cryptek we already know at the back there, next to the smaller spindly thing on the right-hand side. We've got this character on the front left who looks like some sort of priest Cryptek character, who seems to be kind of floating almost. That was like with a camera angle. And behind them, we've got those... Or that like, what are they? Oh, what are they called? Arcoflagellants. They're kind of like Necron Arcoflagellants, hunched over, big weapons, very bulky but also deadly, pretty damn awesome. Not my favourites, but pretty damn awesome. Then we've got a brand new monolith. Yeah, that's a monolith. So obviously that had the big green crystal and all the green bits in it. So they've scrapped that. That's a new monolith, I think. Or it's a new variant on the monolith. And it looks boss. Like, it is the old monolith reimagined, and it looks awesome. I love this new monolith. Yes. We've got at the very far back, that looks like, is that like a sort of pylon terrain piece at the back? That might be a scratch build. And then, well, let's just look in the middle next to the Triarch Stalker first. That looks like some sort of Phoenix Catan. What is that? What is that? You, take the what is that away from the giant quadrupedal doom guns on the left-hand side. What is that? Like, that has to be a Catan of some sort. Like, some sort of new unleashed Catan. I've heard the Void Dragon be thrown around. I wouldn't want to say. Like, wow. Like, that belongs in demon armies. That belongs in... Like, I bet you could make a really cool... Malerian, Demon Fulgrim... Celestant Prime. Ooh, Celestant Prime. Yeah, I like that idea. That model is a beauty. I love that. And then at the back right, I left it long enough. That's the Silent King. That's the Silent King. Wow. Like, I know there's a lot of huge miniatures on this screen with the Monolith, the Mega Catan, which is probably quite dominating, and the Mega Doom Guns on the left. But still, the Silent King with his tracked Catan over his head and his attendants and guardians to either side and what look like two massive shield platforms as well looks awesome. I've not zoomed in on it because I don't want to sort of mess up with my resolution for my laptop. But it looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. And to have it floating on spindle legs with etheric energy. Wow. Why did I sell my Necrons? I sold my Necrons to Luke, who you've seen in various battle reports before, because I had some Necrons a good number of years ago before I went to university, actually. But I sold them on when I bought my Astra Militarum, which is what I had when I started this channel. So I haven't had Necrons in a long time, but I had a few Lich Guards, some Triarch Praetorians, some both types of Immortals, some Warriors. I think I had an Imhotech, Destroyer, some sort of Overlord, some Scarabs. I think I had some Flayed ones as well. I had some very basic bits and bobs for Necrons. And Annihilation Barge. I had one of those. And I quite liked that army, but I got a bit bored with it. And I sold it on. And I regret my decision right now because this looks amazing. The Necrons have been fully rebooted for a new edition. And yeah, like there must be, I know there's so many players going, shut up and take my money about this. And I don't blame them. Like, if you don't like painting lightning, then you might not have fun with all the big stuff, but still, the Necrons look great. Then we got to the Primaris, so we get to see a few more Assault Intercessors. I very much like this one. That one's a good one, with the bare head and the plasma pistol. Then we got these guys. So these are the Blade Guard Veterans. This is the guy from the trailer, which I know I talked about, like, when was it? Oh, blimey, nearly half an hour ago, with the Storm Shield and the sword in the trailer. That's these guys. These are Blade Guard Veterans. So that one is the champion. And these look pretty cool. Like, they very much remind me of the Victrix Guard of Marnia's Calgar, but better. Really bulky, imposing designs. And yeah, I like them. I think they're good. I'm not a massive Primaris person anyway, but I can appreciate good design, and this is good design. Maybe there's a tad much going on, but it doesn't seem too bad. I think if you added any more, it would be too much. And then this. They actually freaking did it. Primaris bikes. These are, I think, hang on, I've just scrolled past their name. They are Outriders. Yes, Primaris Outriders. Yeah, we now have Space Marine Primaris on bikes. And they look like Space Marine bikes. Big, bulky, square, and realistically, like, they shouldn't work. I mean, they fit the Primaris aesthetic. The exhausts are ridiculous. And they very much feel like Space Marine bikes because they're really freaking square and blocky and angular. So they're not my cup of tea, but they're Primaris bikes and they're not bad. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are very happy to see them. Not really many complaints. And then we got this guy, the Judicia. Sorry, Judicia. Looks like a cross between a chaplain and the Emperor's champion. And I bet that Black Templar's armies, especially with the Blade Guards and this guy and the Assault Intercessors, are absolutely loving it. The sword looks ridiculous. Like, why is it flat on top? Like, surely it should have a point for stabbing. I know that he's designed for lopping off heads. That's his gimmick. But still, like, stabby bit, please. Still, cool looking model. Very Stormcasty, with the legs in particular really make me think of Stormcast. So I wonder if you could do some cool conversions with it. And that, I think... Yeah, right. That's everything. Okay, let's just bring this image up. Okay, how long are we? 35 minutes. So that is everything I've wanted to show off and talk about from the preview and from the reveals that came later about the Space Marines and the Necrons. So now, let's have 5 or 10 minutes and talk about 9th edition. So, I've mugged myself off on Adeptus Podcasters by saying I don't think we're getting 9th. I think they're going to wait until Psychic Awakening's over, the Forge World books come out, and when they've got all their ducks in a row, here's going to be the next update. Is it going to be 8.5? Is it going to be 9th? Whatever it is, they'll wait till Psychic Awakening is over and then drop it. Now, I'm not technically wrong, because this thing is basically going to pick up where Psychic Awakening left off. They've just released today, actually, the last Psychic Awakening story, which I'm assuming we'll get better explanations about in Psychic Awakening 9. And it really feels like they're now gearing up for 9th edition at the end of Psychic Awakening. So I wasn't wrong, but I didn't think they would reveal it this early, especially with the lockdown period, meaning that everything's been bumped back by 6 to 8 weeks. So Psychic Awakening 7 is just coming out, whereas I think at the moment we should be in between Psychic Awakening 8 and 9, if the calendars were not disrupted. So realistically, they're dropping this at the time they would have dropped it were there no lockdown and shutdown of the factories, which I'm not opposed to. They probably had this date in their diary for years, but I think that this could have waited 6 weeks until we had Psychic Awakening 8 out of the way, because now, kind of like how the Silent King buried Caesaras's push and Caesaras completely buried Bile's push, this now overshadows the rest of Psychic Awakening, and we're all sort of left looking at, well, okay, these are some cool new rules and new stuff, but the rules are about to change fundamentally on a core level, so this doesn't mean anything because 9th edition's about to drop. So, I think they could have waited to drop this by a few weeks, but I'm not mad. I just think that they maybe could have rejigged it a little bit. That said, I'm not surprised that we're getting a 9th edition. 8th edition is 3 years old. It's had a good run. It's been regularly patched, and it has definitely reinvigorated a lot of people. It's very new lore, which, whether you love it or hate it, has been very proactive, driving the plot, introducing new ideas, which is great. And it's been a lot of big changes to the rules, which I think were long overdue. Things like movement values being introduced, the changing of vehicles to work more like monstrous creatures as an interesting idea, and scrapping of hull points and armor values. Love it or hate it, it was a big change. Some people would say it was a really good idea. 8th made a lot of fundamental changes, and it went through a lot of changes along the way as well, with the tactical reserves change, the Alpha Strike nerf, the command point farm changes, all sorts of changes in all truth. And now it's had its 3-year run of patches and updates and new stuff, and it's ready to hand the reins over to 9th edition, which is basically its slightly more experienced and finely refined cousin. There's not a huge amount of change fundamentally, because datasheets aren't going to change. The idea of aura abilities, keywords, and all of that stuff, because the codices are still valid, those rules have to stay. So the idea of there being movement values, the idea of rolling randomly for charges, the idea of all sorts of things really have to stay, which makes 9th feel like 8.5 with theatrics. I don't know if it is 8.5 with theatrics, because it's obviously doing a lot to the back end of the game. Things like the command point change, the vehicle change. Well, the command point change in particular, I think, is the biggest one that required a new addition. The vehicle change, that could have been FAQ'd. The blast weapon change, theoretically could have been FAQ'd. The flyer change could absolutely have been FAQ'd. The terrain changes, that would probably be an expansion then rolled in. So, okay, fine, new addition. But a lot of the changes they've made are like tune-ups or rebalancing and slight restructuring, are essentially a ginormous FAQ with theatrics. Whereas things like the command point change, that's a fundamental change, and that justifies the new addition. So, I think my overall feelings on 9th edition, I know you've sat through 40 minutes to get here. My overall thoughts, I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's a good idea to update things and allow the plot to move forward with Dawn of Fire and all these new ideas to be introduced, like for the new Necrons, the new Primaris. It's a great idea. But I'm not going to be sat here telling you that I'm on the hype train. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. And all the changes they've made, I agree with in general. However, because of the fact that it is 8.5 with theatrics, at least as of recording this on the Monday, before all the rules and questions are done on the Tuesday, it feels like 8.5 with theatrics. And so I'm not on the hype train for it the same as others might be, no matter how good that freaking trailer is. So, I think it's going to be good. It's going to be a good addition. The lore looks to be developing nicely, and I'm looking forward to Dawn of Fire. The models look boss. The Necrons look amazing, and I really think that hopefully other model ranges will get an update soon, because the last Xenos army to get a major update, was probably October, where we got 5 new units and no remakes. And then I'm going back to... I don't want to go all the way back to the Dark Eldar of 5th edition and the Tau of 6th edition, but I'm struggling to remember when a Xenos faction got a major overhaul and redesign like the Necrons have got. Whereas Chaos had their major redesign around the era of Space Marines 2.0. Space Marines have obviously had major redesigns. I think that the Astra Militarum range needs it. I think that there are elements of the Craft Worlds range that need it. I think the Tau range is okay, aside from the auxiliaries need bulking out. And the Orc range is pretty much where it needs to be. So, yeah, we're nearly there. So, yeah. That is my thoughts on the big Warhammer 40,000 preview online, the models revealed after the fact for the Necrons and Space Marines, and Warhammer 40,000 9th edition. But of course, that's just the opinion of one rambling person on the internet. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about 9th Ed and everything around it. Are you looking forward to it? Are you hyped for it? What rules changes excite you the most? What do you think of the new models? Do you have any questions that you want to answer? In which case, go find that tweet. Generally, what do you think? I always want to know what you have to say, because it's been interesting to try and read the community's mood on this one. Because a lot of the people I follow, a lot of the YouTubers who I'm friends with, are very much positive for the most part. And yet, I hear in the background a lot of grumblings that there's a lot of people who are not so pleased with it. So, always interested to see what you have to say. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been Tactica Imperialis. And I'll see you all again. Bye for now.